Welcome back to Crystal Confab. I am joined by two of my crystal besties, and we're going to be confabbing a little differently this week. Instead of talking about just a single stone, we're going to be celebrating the kind of apex of the seasons that we're living through in our opposite hemispheres right now. It's summer solstice time for me, and it's winter solstice for Adam and Kyle. So how are the solstice vibes down in your hemisphere, gents?
Well, I know for me, going to bed, the sun setting so early in the evening. Um, I think on Sunday evening we were we'd had dinner and we kind of were getting ready for bed or just getting ready to chill out for the night. And I said to my partner, "What time do you think it is?" He's like, "It's about 8 o'clock, isn't it?" And I'm like, "No, it's 6:30 p.m." So it's really interesting how we try and work with the seasons and slow down in the winter. And yeah, the cold weather and the long nights definitely allow us to do that as well. How about you, Kyle?
I will freely admit that I'm not a winter person. I am a summer person. I am a heat person. I don't have a good time in the cold. I am having to rug up and put the heater on and all of that stuff that I don't enjoy doing. But it is what it is, and it is a necessary part of the cycle. So I always try and remember just to at least slow down a bit. And I am trying to. And I do like the winter solstice because it's actually a very important day for my family, having two family members born on the winter solstice. So it's an extra special celebration for me every year.
Wow. But the idea of rugging up, I'm sure, sounds absolutely ghastly to you at the moment, Nicholas.
Yeah, it was, I think, 33 Celsius here. It was in the 90s Fahrenheit. And we're still in the very, very mild part of our summer. In about 6 weeks, it will be oppressive and unbearable. We will break the triple digits here in Florida. I'm glad that I moved to a much more frigid and balmy Central Florida from South Florida. Um, the like 2.5 hours north that I am makes a difference, believe it or not. And I mean, I have the luxury of all this extra sunlight, and I'm rising earlier, even though I don't have the university gig at the moment. I don't really have to wake up that early. I'm still just in the habit of it. I'm getting more productive hours. Even when the sun goes down, I'm still working. I think I worked on a project until, almost half till midnight last night. And I find myself very creative in this season, in this cycle. And while I try to work year round, certainly every year, every season, every tide has its own kind of vibe to it. And that's kind of the point of our conversation today, isn't it? Like leveraging those seasonal tides, those solar tides with the help of our gemstone allies.
Very much so. And I want to acknowledge Nicholas, everyone. Nicholas has elected to turn his air conditioning off in the room so that you can have perfect audio, so you don't hear a humming in the background. So thank you very much for that, Nicholas. But
My
I find it
pleasure.
really interesting when we're working with, when we're working crystals, they're obviously a gift of nature. And when I look at humans as a species, for 99% of the time that we have actually been on this planet as a recognized species, we've lived really in harmony with nature. But over the last 100 to 200 years, we've really started to have that disconnect. And, we kind of live in these climate controlled environments, whether it be our home, our car, or our workspace. And it fascinates me how many people are out of sync with, the moon and the seasons in that type of way as well. So I think part of wanting to work with our crystals is even looking at, well, what crystals should I work with in different seasons as well, and how can we kind of bring them up? So I wanted to share first of all something I love to do. Um, the summer solstice and the winter solstice are both really important to me. I am a June baby, so here in the southern hemisphere, it's my birthday is just a week before the summer solstice. So I really love that kind of snuggling up and the romantic kind of feel of the rain and the cold weather and that type of thing as well. But I think also when we look at spirituality, we often work with the moon, and everyone finds the moon very magical. And of course it is. And I think it's beautiful to work with the cycles of the moon. And we've talked about that in previous episodes. However, we have the full moon 13 times a year, but how often do we have a full sun? And the answer is really 1 day a year. And that is the time when the sun is considered to be at its peak energy, and that, of course, is the summer solstice. The winter solstice, for me, is the beginning. And in some Earth-based belief systems, this is the day, after the longest night, is when the new sun god is born, and the sun gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So I really love to kind of get into this essence of the winter solstice and the summer solstice and celebrate them in different ways. So let me talk a little bit about what I do on the summer solstice. We love to put crystals out under the full moon and charge them and imbue them with that kind of magical, intuitive energy. So every summer solstice, and remember, I will point out, some people go, it's this certain date every year, but our Gregorian calendar doesn't exactly line up with the sun's rotation. It's why we have to throw a leap year in there to kind of keep us on track. But whatever that day is, and there's great calendars online that you can find, this crystal, my clear quartz, I pop outside and I try and put it in a position where it is in the sun from the moment the sun is shining on the earth to the moment it stops. So I imbue it with that solar energy. So just like I have crystals that have that beautiful lunar energy, when I need that solar energy, that yang, that vitality, that courage, that assertiveness, and that type of thing, whether it be in the middle of summer or whether it be in the middle of winter and I'm feeling really cold, this clear quartz crystal is one that I would really work with. And we're going to talk about some other solar crystals throughout the episode today as well. You may want to pop more than one, but this has kind of become my dedicated summer solstice, litha, midsummer, out for the day, and then I can connect with that solar energy whenever I need that. Now, for me, the winter solstice, also known as Yule, is a really great time to kind of connect with spirituality, connect with more the crown chakra. And this is a time, I'm noticing it's harder to get out of bed in the morning. Normally in summer, the alarm goes off and I just get up. Whereas I'm like, should I hit the snooze button? You want to, nature is telling us to. And people have reached out to me over the last few weeks and said, oh, I'm feeling really lethargic and low energy. What crystals and essential oils would you recommend? I'm like, well, before you try and butt against that energy, why don't you work with that energy and just slow down a little bit? Because we're the only species that ignores the seasons, ignores the sun. I notice the plants aren't growing. I notice the animals aren't as active. Why don't we do the same? So I will do the same on the night of the winter solstice. I'll pop them out for the night to really harness that cold, introspective, quiet energy. I have a few for this one. I love amethyst around this time. It's a 101 type of crystal, but it is that one that encourages us to slow down. And I'll pop, this is my favorite Vera Cruz, little amethyst, and a good old Auralite that I love as well. It's from Canada. These are two of my favorite amethysts. They'll go out. If you are looking for a bit of a quartz, one crystal, and I'd love to know both my Confabers' opinions on this, that doesn't get much attention anymore, that I find a really quite tranquil kind of quartz, is a good old Tibetan quartz. And it kind of had its heyday, and I guess maybe the sources aren't as available anymore, but I just find this one so zen and so tranquil compared to a clear quartz. And I'll basically pop that trilogy out this Saturday night because that's when we have our longest night coming up this week type of thing. So what about you guys? How do you feel about things like Tibetan quartz?
I genuinely really love it. It's one of those ones that I didn't have a chance to work with until I got a really beautiful piece. It's like a big palm size, double terminated. It's got anhydrous in it. Like it's a really complex piece just in itself. And it was like its complexity forced me to stop and slow down. Like it has that like stop, look at what's going on, like take it all in, and like it kind of stopped me in my tracks in a really nice way. I really enjoy that like forceful, like just settle down, take a moment. The layered, like I always find them to be quite layered, and they have that kind of, you can work through things, which is really, really nice. I have a little skull that now matches with that point as well. So yeah, big fan of Tibetan.
Nicholas, have you got any Tibetan quartz in your collection?
I do. So I love what's called alpine type quartz, which encompasses a wide range of high altitude uh, quartz crystals. The challenge that I've got with things called Tibetan blank is a lot of it doesn't actually come out of Tibet. So most of the Tibetan quartz on the market comes from Sichuan province, China, which if you look at a map, they're next to each other. The geology doesn't change with the political border, but the price does. And so
Mm.
if it is sold as, anthraxolite included quartz from Sichuan province, China, it is about a quarter of the price of the black phantom quartz from Tibet, even though they're an identical material, and geologically are formed by the same events. As much as I do appreciate some of that good old-fashioned Tibetan quartz, like you showed, I actually have a very special fondness for the high altitude quartzes that we're seeing coming from places like Ganesh Himal and Kanchenjunga in Nepal, spilling out over into parts of Pakistan as well, because this is a really big geological event that created this mountain chain of the Himalayas and its surrounding rolling foothills and highlands, and you just find some stunning quartz from that region. So I lean more towards those than like the old school Black Phantom, but I have a goodly number of those because I love them, and um, they're they're so enchanting to work with.
And do you find the alpine quartzes all have that more kind of peaceful energy about them?
There is a clarity. It's like a breath of fresh air on a mountaintop. I know it's kind of cliche to say that about something that geologically we call alpine type quartz. Um, but it really is. And when we find quartzes from similar geologic environments, for example, in the Alps, whether from, Switzerland or France or Italy, we see very, very similar quartz formations in these regions as well. And they have that clarity, and it's a kind of luminous clarity. It's when we take that big breath of fresh air and we empty our mind, there's space for light to shine through us. And if that isn't a solstice vibe, I don't know what is.
Mm. Very much so. So yeah, those are the ones that I absolutely love and kind of lean into. I'm doing a lot of work with amethysts this week in the lead up to the winter solstice. What about yourself, Kyle? What crystals do you kind of lean into around the solstices?
Well, I have so many, like so many, but there are a couple that I'm really going to focus on just as a broad connection to the winter solstice. Here in WA, I like to connect to the Noongar seasons that we live in Wajak Noongar country in the southwest of WA. And we are in what's called Makaru season, which is the season of fertility for our 6 seasons that we work with. So it is a time when we are spending more time in the home, or the traditional owners of this land would spend more time in the home. They would migrate to places that were drier. They would be working more on intimacy and procreating for what is to come. So I really love that energy of like coming together, being more relaxed. And weirdly enough, I work with Black Moonstone. Black Moonstone for me is a really beautiful energy. All of the moonstones, traditional moonstones for me, have this ability to say, look at where you are right now. Let's take it in. Let's take a moment. What do you need? What do you require? What is important to you? It can be a little bit like revealing the shadow self, which is good, which is important at the winter solstice. We want to be introspective. We want to be looking inwards at what we need, what we've achieved in the last year. As Adam mentioned, it's kind of that new breath the morning after, that new beginning. The sun starts to get longer in the sky, the days get longer. So it reminds us that whatever has been up until now is literally the past. Look at it, be aware of it, take it all in, address some things that maybe you haven't addressed. And this is why we have this long night to be focused on us, to be focused on our needs and what we require to then plant new seeds to grow as we move forward, as the days get longer and the sun gets longer. Moonstone will like say, this is where you are. And Black Moonstone's like, it's cold, it's dark, you don't have as much energy, and you don't have as much time in the day. So use what you have wisely during the day and then give to yourself. And I love the evening, as I said, of the solstice. Very important for my family. Mother and brother born on the same day. The twin energy of the Gemini coming through really strongly. But it's, for me, also family. Like, it's a day of family and a day of being with my family and celebrating with my family. And we're always doing something, whether it's a dinner or a lunch or a gathering. And there's often a fire out the back and chatting and communicating and connecting. And it's like, those are the vibes, right? It's a lovely thing. We don't want to do too much. And it's a really nice reminder of that. And I think if you haven't worked with Black Moonstone before, it's a really lovely dive into the darkness in a good way, where like obsidians can be a bit harsh and forceful in a good way. Moonstone has that sort of softer vibe that takes us there, which I really enjoy. And this is actually a piece of Tanzanian Black Moonstone with Sunstone in it. Like, this is both of the solstices together. Like, you could do either or, and it would be great. I will give a special shout out to Numite, Isua Stone. I love working with Numite and Isua Stone during the solstice of the winter variety, because it's about diving. I find they help me to really dive down and dive deep into myself and into information. So they can be really useful as well. Now, the summer solstice, this is kind of my jam. And I actually love Adam's putting the crystal out to get that sun for the day and then using that all year. And I've sort of taken that and run with it. And I think last summer solstice, I was up to 4 oven trays of crystals that all connect to the sun. So anything orange, anything yellow, anything solar, anything fiery, all out in that summer solstice sunshine to like boost them. And then for the whole year ahead, they've got all of that energy. So you can take what Adam has done and run with it if you like. But my favorite, and named for the sun god himself, Helios, Heliodor, is my favorite to work with because it is so bright and uplifting. And when the summer solstice comes around, we want to be positive, we want to be happy, we want to be joyful, we want to be in that energy of buoyancy, of yang, of yes. I find Heliodor to be such an enlightened energy of leadership, of seeing that you are the leader of your own life. You are the one that is in charge. You are the one that can. You are the one that shines brightly for everyone around you. And it reminds you that you are that light. You are that brightness. You are that warmth. You can celebrate yourself in your fullness, in your wholeness. This is a Ukrainian etched Heliodor, one of my favorite pieces in the whole world. I find the reminder of self-importance without being like a knob about it, excuse me. It's like, you are important. You have an important role to play in your own life. You have important decisions that you have to make every day. You have to look after your family, pay your bills, blah, 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 blah. Like, it helps you to see, this is who I am. I'm important. I'm doing my job. I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to have a good time with it. I'm going to enjoy the work that I have to do. And it, like, for me, that summer solstice energy is like, make hay while the sun shines. As Nicholas mentioned, like, I'm getting more work done because I have more energy. And it's like, so do it, right? You're not going to have it forever. We're going to come to the winter time and be cold and be lethargic and not want to do. And you'll be like, oh, I wish I had done a little bit more. Heliodor helps you to go, this is what I can do. This is where I'm going to direct my energy. This is how I'm going to show up. This is the action that I'm going to take. I find all the beryls are very like conscious of action, right? They help you to be very, this is what I need to do. And Heliodor, like, it comes from the gut. It helps you to like get out of that overthinking space of, I need to think my way through everything. It's like, get into your gut and go, what do I need? How do I do it? How can I jump in and be enthusiastic? Or how can I say no and go, actually, I don't need that anymore? Like, it's not just yes all the time. It gives you that, I don't know, sovereignty could be a good word, that ability to be in your own power, wearing your crown. Like, I find there's a few crystals that really help you to like wear the crown and be the one in charge of your life. Lapis lazuli is another really good one. But Heliodor does it in this way that is almost, I find it detached in a good way. Like, the sun is detached from this planet and shines. If it was too close, we'd burn up, right? Heliodor helps you to have that level of observation and detachment so that things can grow properly. You can let certain things have a bit more reach, have a bit more space to do their own thing while you focus on things that are closer and more important. That kind of discernment really comes through beautifully with Heliodor, and I find it divine to work with for that summer solstice. So you can go, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm focusing, this is how I'm going to be a good leader in my own life, this is how I'm going to show up for the people in my life and myself, this is how I'm going to make the most of what's going on. I'm going to maybe even take some risks, maybe even push the boat out a little bit and take some chances because the sun's out. Why not, right? The sun's not going to be out forever. So I also think the timing of the summer solstice with the very end of Sagittarius season is also very appropriate. Me being a very Sagittarian in the Southern Hemisphere, I find like I have 5 placements, like that fire within me kind of just expands to that point of like, yes, this is what I need in my life. So I love that kind of heat and openness and warmth, and I find Heliodor really matches with that as well. And a special shout out, of course, to Citrine and Sunstone for the summer solstice, because Citrine and Sunstone both are wonderful to work with, and I will always work with them. But I really wanted to focus on Heliodor as an energy because we hadn't yet, and Black Moonstone too.
I love that. And, I want to give a shout out also. Maybe I'm selfish being a Gemini myself, but as you're talking and you kind of mentioned that Gemini nature, it's interesting that we have a solstice in the Gemini season as well. And I often find, Geminis are, as a zodiac sign, traditionally a bit misunderstood. They're seen, oh, they're twins, they're two-faced, there's the good one and the evil one. But what I actually find and it kind of has just fallen into place with the solstices, they have a summer solstice form, which is the explorer, the social one who goes out and gathers and immerses themselves in information. Very, very social. That is very summer solstice. But then they also have a winter solstice side. They like to have a quiet time. And when Geminis go quiet, it's not that they're plotting your death. It's not that they're being evil. It's that they're actually assimilating all that knowledge and kind of allowing it to land in place so they can piece it all together, which is very winter solstice as well. So it's almost as though Gemini, I've never kind of thought of the Gemini solstice comparison, but they do work really beautifully together, don't they?
Absolutely. And I would say the same for the Sagittarian, right? We are very misunderstood as like, we're always about action, we're always about fun and adventure. And it's like on the other side, we're the philosopher. We like to learn, we like to know, we like to have information. And so I think the solstices forming on our 2 mutable signs of fire and air before falling into cardinal water and cardinal earth, like it's quite an interesting like shift of like mutability, being connected and open to whatever's happening and then going the next day. So it's quite interesting that we get to kind of use these as New Year's points, as like signposts that help us to move forward. I think it's a good thing.
And almost bring out that balance that there is a time for action and a time for introspection, just like we now in the south are all complaining about how cold it is, and Nicholas in the north is complaining about how hot it is, type of thing, where they're being active, we're being introspective. So even on our planet, there is that balance, and we can also find that balance throughout the year within our own lives as well. So yeah. So Nicholas, I'm dying to know, what crystals are you grabbing for in the coming days?
Well, very predictably, Citrine and Sunstone. And a bonus one that we're going to come back to. So I'm going to start with Sunstone because it's obvious. Solstice, right there, the Latin for that sol means sun. It's the point at which the sun stands still. In other words, it reaches that zenith in its cycle, whether it is, which seasonal cycle varies depending on your hemisphere, of course. But we think of solstices and in 2 very different terms. With our kind of modern understanding of the seasons, which are, begun and ended with equinoxes and solstices, we think of them as ending points, transitional periods. Historically, though, they are the midway points because it's the warm half and the cool half, or vice versa for you folks down there. And so this is the peak of those cycles. And Sunstone for me is reaching that peak, but reminding that we still got to go downhill from here. So whether we are Northern Hemispherians and battling suffering through summer, as the case might be for some of us closer to the equator than others. It's still a time to remember that we need some resolve. We need to plan for the cycle ahead. Sunstone is great for when we're kind of faced with sluggishness, an internal coldness, insecurity, fatigue. And we feel these things as a result of seasons, no matter which pinnacle you're living through right now. It's the winter solstice. Oh, I'm so tired of winter and darkness, but you're only halfway through. Or the summer, I'm so sick of having to seek respite from the outdoors, which is painful. And still we get this brilliance that shines through with Sunstone. It can help us pick and choose the battles that we would like to wager. It can help us get things circulating again so we don't get stuck and stagnant. This is a temporary cycle, all the seasons are, but if we kind of get hung up on the way things are at solstice time, then we forget what it's like the day after, and the day after, and the day after that, as the levels of sunlight change, as the tides of life and death change, as the balance between day and night changes. So I think there is a really pleasant kind of, we'll use the astrological term mutability here, since Kyle was talking about that. And we can work with a lot of different kinds of sunstones for this. We've got the kind of classic orangey material with little bits of hematite and sometimes ilmenite inside. And this is material like you might find from Brazil or India. I have a really fine Indian sunstone. I'm not sure if this is going to show up very well, but it is actually, it's only showing up as a cat's eye now, but it actually has two rays. It is an asteroided sunstone from India. I've got a Tanzanian one. They're selling this as like a bunch of different names now, and from two sides, very clearly sunstone, those beautiful ribbons of hematite running through it, but from the other two, Moonstone. Again, reminding us of balance and cycles. But one of my favorites that is hard to find in good quality for an affordable price is the Oregon Sunstone, which is actually chemically, it is labradorite. Um, Sunstones and moonstones, for that matter, are not really discrete substances. They're optical phenomena across a range of loosely related chemistries. But this has a really brilliant flash in it that the camera is just barely picking up. And that's caused by little bits of copper. And copper, we've talked about in the past being very Venusian, but it's also very solar with that golden red shine that it takes. So any sunstone that you work with is going to help reflect to us the nature of the season, the nature of the cycle, as well as lending that kind of solar vibe. Now, in the past, I've waxed poetic about citrine already, so I won't say too much, except that I think citrine is a great one for balancing the extremes because it has this wonderful gift of teaching us how to let go. It unwinds and unravels the tension that holds old patterns in place. So when we get stuck in a cycle of complacency, or if we're in a loop of negative self-talk, or we have seasonal affective disorder and it just feels like it's never going to end, this is a stone whose warmness softens that, who allows things to begin to flow and exchange again. The solstice, the translation of that term from Latin, like sun standing still, it implies a stagnancy, a rigidity that we tend towards, whichever hemisphere you're in. Maybe you live in mild enough climates that it's not very extreme, but it is something that we have to learn to deal with and kind of surrender to that. And the only way out is through. And I think one of the gifts of citrine is that of light. So I've got a couple Zambian ones, um, real gemmy on the interior with that kind of smoky phantom. I've got one from Brazil. This is my wedding crystal. This was my wedding gift to myself when we went up to New York for our wedding in 2022. We visited the best crystal shop in Steven's hometown, and I found this wonderfully etched Brazilian citrine. It's undergone some wonderful dissolution. It's got some partially etched, that's too much light, albite on the back. And it's just so lovely. It is decidedly gentler and softer than the Zambian ones. And then, I mean, this I've heard reports of people talking about this in spaces where I'm not even there. And of course, it's my beautiful heart-shaped Japan Law twin, Citrine. So I've probably spoken too much about citrine on the podcast in the past, so I won't spend any more time on that. But I want to throw out an honorable mention, and this is one that I work with anytime I need to attune to the rhythms and tides of the seasons. And it doesn't matter what season it is. It doesn't matter if it's a big solar cycle, a larger cosmic cycle, like our precession of the equinoxes, or whether they're smaller cycles, like that transition to Monday morning from Sunday night. It's just a great one for cycles and change. And that is Leopardskin Jasper, which is not at all a jasper. And we'll unpack that more in a future episode, actually, coming up fairly soon. But I wanted to talk about the kind of rhythmic quality of this stone first and foremost. So those little speckles and rings and dots that we see on it that make it look like a leopard's skin um, are these little radial aggregates of its components. It forms as an igneous rock and it goes up very small amount of metamorphosis in some cases, but essentially the things that are chemically alike and structurally alike aggregate together in these little rings. And when you look at them close up, they almost look like maybe the knobs or dials on a control panel or the gears in a clock. And all of those things have to be working together in harmony for the greater device to function. And in this case, it's symbolic of two greater devices, the macrocosm, the universe. If all of a sudden the Earth started rotating in the wrong direction, there would be problems, not just for us, but there'd be ripples. There'd be lots of things that go wrong in our little corner of the universe, and they would stretch out even farther. But it also represents a kind of harmony of the spheres as it relates to the microcosm. Are my mind and body in alignment? Are my emotions and my intellect in alignment? Are my intentions and my actions in alignment? And do all of those things sit like a nesting doll inside the greater cosmic alignments taking place? And so if we're having difficulty adapting to, or on the flip end, if things are going really well and you want it to last because you're in that space of divine flow, we can get a little extra leverage from Leopardskin Jasper. It has this quality of divine timing, divine alignment. Yes, the sun is at its peak, or the opposite, it's at its valley with this solstice, but that's still part of a greater cosmic scheme that is taking place, and we can live within that and get the same magic all year long if we learn how to live in harmony with those periods of change and transition and adaptation. So um, I I think Leopardskin Jasper is it's not in my top 5, but if I had a top 12, I'm pretty sure it would be up there. And it is seldom as colorful as these beads that I'm wearing now. And so it's often overlooked as just kind of a boring rock. And I think it is anything but. And it's got so much wonderful solstice magic. And I picked this kind of yellowy one because it felt very solar. So whether we're at the top of the cycle with all of that sunshine in the summer, and we want to bottle that up and save it, or maybe we didn't plan ahead and it is now our winter time and we're in the valley and we're really wishing we had that extra solar vibe, we can work with the same crystals. So much of vibrational healing at large is not an either or, it's not off or on, it's about balancing spectrums. If we only focus on things that are polar opposites, we miss all of the beautiful gray area in between. And truth be told, if every day was the summer solstice or the winter solstice, life would cease to function as we know it. So when we are talking about stones that relate to maybe our experience of the winter solstice or the summer solstice or a particular equinox or a part of the lunar cycle, we have to remember that they offer the same kinds of balance throughout the whole cycle. And we spend more time in the middle of a cycle than we do at either end. And the magic here with stones like Sunstone and Citrine, or any of the ones that we've talked about all episode long, is recognizing the magic they grant us in the in-between, because that is the magic we experience through most of the year.
Nicholas, I've kind of built little practices for each of the 8 kind of pagan festivals throughout the year. So, when Imbolc happens, I like to put little tea light candles in the eastern windows and put all my solar crystals around there to welcome the sun in as it starts to get warmer in where I'm living. Or in Beltane, I'll put rose quartz outside and then actually wash my face with the dew in the morning. Bit of an Aphrodite kind of practice. Have you got any practices that you've kind of established or that you traditionally do for either of the solstices, or is it more just about surrounding yourself with the particular crystals that resonate with that energy?
I my ritual structure varies from year to year, although it calls upon very similar themes. I have the neurodivergent brain that doesn't like things to be too similar from instance to instance, but there are a few themes that I really come to again and again. One old European tradition in the winter solstice is to extinguish all of the flames in the house, all lights in the house except the hearth fire. And many years, I'll say as many years I do this as I don't. I turn off every lamp in the house. I unplug everything that makes light that is reasonable to do. And whatever the kind of spiritual center of the house is, I will light a candle, or if it's outdoors, if there's a space to do that. And in some homes I can, and when we lived in apartments, obviously there were no open flames. But I will start that light and then spread it to the rest of my space. In the summer solstice, everything's already flooded with light. So I like to go out into that light, and kind of drink it up, bring it in. I am not a creature that does well with a lot of direct sun. I am very fair-skinned. I am a ginger, and I am from Florida, so those things don't always get on really well. So some years that has to happen pretty early in the day, or for a very short window if I don't take advantage when I can before the sun gets too high. But uh, both ends of the cycle, both halves of the year, it focuses on light one way or another. What about you, Kyle? Do you have any particular rituals, crystal related or otherwise?
So for me, I would say I have more structure around the summer solstice than the winter solstice. Um, in the summer solstice period, we're in the season of Birak, which is like the hot, the dry, the warm. And even though I love the sun, our sun is so harsh and our UV is like 12 or 13 on those days. It's going to be in the 40s. I will be out at sunrise. I will be up at 4:30 in the morning. I will be out at sunrise and I will have all of my crystals out and I will take at least 15 minutes with that early morning sun, drinking it in the same way that the crystals do, having generally something like Citrine or Heliodor based around this area so I can draw it in through my breath and let it spread through my body. And I try and sort of hold that for as long as I can, as long as is able in our sun. Like there are some mornings where it's mild and it's only 25 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we can, enjoy an hour, and I'll sit out there for an hour and I'll really enjoy that. And then there are some where it's already 35 degrees at stupid o'clock in the morning. So I go out for 10 minutes, absorb what I need to, and then go back inside or into the shade at least to recover from the sun that I love so much. And in the winter solstice, as I mentioned, it's generally always focused on family. So I kind of live by whatever mum and bro are doing to celebrate the birthday, we will generally do. And for myself, I just try and take a little bit of time. The winter solstice is, like, as Nicholas mentioned, like it's the beginning of the season. Like it's only the very beginning of winter. We have like 3 more months where it's going to be cold and wet here. So it's like I try and prepare myself for what's to come, because the darkest months are over, but the wettest months aren't. And it stays really cold and wet from July and August. So I try and like mentally prepare myself for that by spending time with my little black crystals, and generally some citrine as well. Citrine is generally something I will work through the winter solstice just to keep maintaining what energy I do need to get through what I need to get through. But I've done a lot of like journal work, facing myself, doing a lot of journaling through the winter solstice. I generally love to kind of tap into that.
One thing I've established that you probably aren't doing in the summer solstice is too much baking, because all your bloody baking trays are outside, aren't they, Kyle?
Listen, air fryer is useful sometimes, but on the solstice, there is no baking happening. It is like, my husband was like, where are the oven trays? I'm like, they're outside with crystals on them. Where else?
Where else would they be? That's what
I
they're for,
also
aren't
had a
they?
tea towel underneath. They're not going straight onto like the metal of the oven tray. Just a hot tip, because crystals might chip or not like that very much. I learned that the first time around. I put a tea towel so they've got a nice soft buffer as well.
Amazing. We've been talking a lot about crystals for ourselves, but I think another nice thing that you can do around the winter solstice, it is known as Yule. That is one of the pagan festivals that's kind of evolved into Christmas, where this idea of gift giving and supporting others through those cold seasons. So if you have other crystal buddies who really like crystals, this would probably be a really nice time to kind of maybe gift crystals that you think might support people through the next 12 months. And you could, say, I've chose this one for you. I know you're getting ready to launch a business, or I know you've come out of a relationship and you're putting yourself back out there again, and choosing crystals like that. So this would probably be one of the best times of the year, being the winter solstice, to actually gift people crystals if you wanted to do that as well. If you've got other crystal lovers around you in your circles as well, I think. But one thing I learned while Nicholas was talking is that the solstices show us that, if you're in the summer solstice, the days will start getting shorter. If you're in the winter solstice, the days will start getting longer. It's another lesson that this too will pass, always reminding us that good things will always come to an end, but bad things will also come to an end as well. And at this point, this podcast must come to an end until we're back next week. Scared you for a second there. Until then, please let us know in the comments. We'd love to know your winter solstice and your summer solstice crystals, the ones that you reach for. And have you got any little traditions or practices that you can share with our crystal loving community as well? Please share them, and we'll see you again for our next episode of Crystal Confab.